Dark matter is a hypothetical substance that makes up approximately 85% of the matter in our current universe, but for some reason we cannot confirm its existence, since it does not interact with the electromagnetic force. This in turn means it does not absorb, reflect, or emit light, making it extremely hard to spot or even prove its existence. And the only reason us as a species believe in its existence is the unexplained nature of the forces of gravity. So, in this hypothetical of what if Naruto had dark matter or dark matter release, we will be stepping into something closer to a gravitational pull with some fictional spins on the concept of dark matter, which would more closely link it to antimatter. So if you do see some crosses in that little gray section between the two, that is the reason, just to spice the what if up a little bit more. But I've been blabbering on long enough with the explanation, so let's get into this. At first, the Raikage and Jiraiya would have some conversation about the events of the time period that's about to come, obviously in place as they have nothing to hide from their current company. Jiraiya would reveal the information of Naruto and the Nine Tails consciousness switching to the Raikage, whilst he would only confirm that Naruto would be in a difficult situation, needing to face off against the Nine Tails as soon as he enters the Waterfall of Truth. Both would obviously be concerned about the Akatsuki, but B would bring up about how his tentacle clone was pretty much one-sidedly able to keep busy both Sasuke and his whole group. So if anyone pops up, he should be able to deal with them. But nevertheless, the Raikage would reveal that he would be accompanying them until the waterline, from where they would then travel alone to the island which houses the Waterfall of Truth. And on that island are countless shinobi that would happily give their lives to protect B and possibly even Naruto. This would reassure Jiraiya as he would finally give the confirmation of Naruto leaving. He'd also say that he would send some shinobi, as this is basically a declaration of alliance between all the villages, including the Leaf and Cloud. The Raikage would accept this and they would part ways. This is where we lead into the initial Kisame encounter between the Raikage and B, but this time with Naruto present, meaning there is a little bit of information that would heavily change. They would at first tell Naruto to stand back, as Kisame would attempt to take into containment both Jinchuriki using Samehada, or at least make it seem like that is the case, since after he is at first believedly defeated, it would be revealed by Naruto's enhanced chakra sensory, since he had gone into Sage mode in this time, being on guard just in case, realizing that Kisame is actually hiding inside of Samehada, since with both the Sharingan, his distorted chakra, and Sage mode altogether, his way of sensory had surpassed any other, since he has no conventional meaning of sensory, which would allow him to sense Kisame where others wouldn't. So he would reveal this to be, as the one they had believed to have died would turn into a white Zetsu. At this point, they would once again go against B, this time having their Raikage and Naruto present, all going all out with the intention of killing Kisame, meaning there wouldn't later on in this same arc be no drawback from Kisame hiding inside of Samehada. Also, during this fight, Samehada would have gotten a taste of B's chakra, and it would happily leave Kisame in favor of B, meaning Kisame is once again at a disadvantage, meaning B, the Raikage, and Naruto would easily take care of Kisame in this situation, leaving us to go on to the Waterfall of Truth. And as you might have guessed, even though they would be crossing a wide ocean with any number of monsters being possible, there would be no filler-like canonicity here, as B would probably be able to handle anything they throw at him, being the Eight Tails perfect Jinchuriki. So we would move on to actually getting on the island, where Naruto would commune with the locals and so on and so forth, having split off from not B but the Raikage, and eventually make his way to the waterfall some of time earlier than he originally did, meaning he would be faced with his darker self, which in this case is not another personality, but Kurama's consciousness, or the humanoid version of Kurama's consciousness that had constantly been taking over Naruto's body. And even though Killer B had confirmed that Naruto would not be in any fundamental danger as long as he's there, he cannot confirm that the Nine-Tails, who already has a grasp over his body, cannot completely take over. So Naruto would enter with caution, and as he enters his meditation, he would see an alternate version of himself with, instead of his normal purple sage eyes as he had seen it, theirs being red. Instead of having the horizontal slit that he usually has, they have a vertical one surrounded by 3 black tomo. This basically in his mind confirms this being Kurama, as the slits on his face get intensified and his nails are elongated. They would at first stare at each other as the Nine-Tails would start speaking. He would say, "It's been a while since we've spoken, kid," with Naruto basically reciprocating, saying that the last time they had met, he had forced him to give him chakra. Kurama would smile, saying that this is what led to all of this, him being able to take over Naruto's body, this blasphemous chakra that destroys anything it touches. With Naruto bringing up the bright sides, if he knows what he's doing, it doesn't destroy, it merely attracts and rejects. It is a lot less destructive whilst in the right hands, only when it's someone as evil and as blasphemous as him that it turns out that badly. This would result basically in an interaction between Naruto and Kurama, which starts with a long-gauged conversation where eventually Kurama would bring up the fact that Hashirama and Madara disrupted his peace. Before that point, he had never as much been mad at a human, never mind killed them. So all this could be tracked back and blamed on Madara and Hashirama, as he had actually protected over a rice field. Naruto would of course doubt this, but then Kurama would point out every single need for his insane outcome. How he's always rageful. Mito basically dragged inside of her forcefully as she sealed him herself. On the other hand, Kushina had chained him to a moon, and Naruto locked him away in a stinking sewer. Is he not justified at being mad at his torturers and prisoners? Because Kushina would actually torture him, he would reveal. Obviously, we do not know if this is actual canonly happening, but at least for this story, it does. So Naruto, even though feels sympathy, would be attacked by the Nine-Tails, for he does want to be set free. This would result in an eager battle with Naruto and Kurama. Naruto, being able to be in a meditative state, is able to generate a form of psychiatric sage mode, as he is able to fight off against the Nine-Tails version of himself, obviously with no Nine-Tails enhancements. So he's able to keep up pretty well. And along with this, he discovered that his Sharingan is mutating, as he could see it within Kurama's eyes. He can't exactly realize what is happening to that version of himself's eyes, but he could at least determine that it is changing. So, as the fight continues, Naruto was able to talk Kurama down, saying that if he lets him out of the cage, puts him in a field somewhere, would he stop this madness? With Kurama saying he doesn't want to be inside of a seal in a field, he wants to actually be free. With Naruto pointing out that he'd be in more danger outside of him than inside, since even though he's highly destructive, he won't be able to hide from the Akatsuki forever. They have multiple suppressants and so on and so forth, meaning they're on way better terms. And at this point, Yamato, who had been heading to the area, or at least that same island, would have been captured by the Akatsuki to form their wooden clones, meaning Yamato wouldn't really be there to protect any of them. So, these wooden clones, or these wooden Zetsu, should by all means be able to get Kurama later on, but obviously Naruto doesn't know this. But through eventual bargaining, they come to a conclusion that Naruto would improve Kurama's situation in the seal, And when they're not in some sort of strict scenario, like as if they are in the village after this entire war scenario has blown over, that Naruto would allow him to inhabit the body of a transformed clone so that he isn't in that stuffy place all along. So, with this terms, they would be able to break free in a hug, as Naruto would do this off of emotional impulse, and both B and Naruto, after confirmation, would head inside of the waterfall. With this, B would help Naruto not only train, but also enter the seal, and along with entering the seal, Naruto would break the cage. This would also result in a not need for him to face off against Kurama, since as soon as he releases Kurama, he could feel his chakra becoming plentiful. He would turn around as he would blast into this purple aura, not just an aura this time, but more of a skin-tight suit. With this, he would see a strange individual appear in front of him. She is a redhead, and springing from her back are chains. It would grab the Nine Tails and drag him to the ground, as Naruto would plead with this person to let it go. This is where we would be revealed that this is Kushina, and with this we'd have a much different interaction than what we did in canon. This time she would say that she believes Naruto has the means to unlock the chains, he just needs to try. She would tell him all the properties of the chains because they are consisting of chakra. One could mold chakra through them and potentially affect them with things like chakra nature. So she wants him to attempt to unlock it and do what presumably no other Uzumaki has ever done. After that, we get a conversation between Naruto and his mother, where she would confirm that he must find friends and loved ones that he could count on, and him leaving the seal. Not only does this give us a Naruto who is not being monitored by Kisame, but one who already has KCM by the time they enter the waterfall. Meaning, him and B can get straight to training, and by the time the war arc begins, they could leave. Meaning they might even miss Iruka at the start, which would lead Naruto to not have as much of a troublesome time getting to the battlefield. And with that, you might assume his training with B would begin, and that's exactly what we're going to start off with. Naruto's training with B would most likely be on controlling not only this new form, which he knows to be KCM, or calls KCM, being Kurama Chakra mode, but he would add D at the end, so it will be, or at the start, being DKCM. Dark KCM, as it is based on dark matter, thus being the purple hue that we give it as a visual change in Naruto and canon and this what if. So from here on forward, would he not only be able to extend limbs and so on and so forth, but create multiple Rasengans using this, and even gains an insane sensibility past what he originally had. With this, he would attempt to use Sage Mode, but at first it would be too much of a strain on his body. So instead, he would move his training to another subject, which is his mother's chains. And as you might assume, like in canon, he can't actually use it. And he would end up finding that he could create chakra-like constructs with the chakra Kurama had given him. Obviously, Kurama would be mad that Naruto is so frequently using his chakra to train, but he let the boy do so. Even going into a clone form, which would then be revealed to be that he can do a similar thing, and instead of a Naruto or B body, they would use the transformation jutsu to create a smaller version of themselves that would appear similar to Shikaku in Boruto, but obviously not contained. So this would leave Naruto with a construct-like chain that bears the effects of his dark matter and even have a destructive nature, which would mostly stem from the combination of normal chakra or Naruto's corrupt chakra with Kurama's, making it more of an antimatter than dark matter. But since this isn't that exact what if, only when one makes direct contact with the chain, a portion that is touching the chain would somewhat decay. That is, if Naruto wills it so, meaning Naruto's form itself is destructive. So even if you get him unconscious, if he still bears the chakra around his body, he would most likely injure someone to the very maximum. This also gives us a point where Naruto is, I'd say, at least confident in his abilities, leaving both him and B to leave the waterfall, which means there is no actual Kisame encounter since he is actually dead in this what if, meaning they could head to the Five Nation Council or whatsoever and actually be a part of the war. Even though at first the Kage would argue that they don't want Naruto and be present, they would agree to fight on the back line as some sort of reserve, knowing that they would later on be sent forward as they would be the only choice. They would accept this as the Hokage and other Kage present would let them do so. Also, talking about the Hokage, at this point Tsunade has recovered and would have joined the alliance, meaning Jiraiya is no longer current reigning Hokage, which would also leave us to go a similar route in canon to Gaara becoming the leader of the Shinobi Alliance. And at the end of the day, it was his word that let Bee and Naruto partake in the backfield battles. So, going forward, we will be going over the actual war arc. But before we can go over the events of the war arc, we have to segue into yet another part, a last part, since we will be going over the rest of the war arc all in one segment, meaning y'all would not have to bear witness to yet another part after that. I really do know y'all want this series to finish, and it will finish in exactly 4 days. So if y'all are excited for the next part, make sure to smash subscribe and hit that bell notification as you will be notified as soon as it is out. Also, along with that, I would like to thank every person you see on screen for being channel members, as they do help me gain some sort of financial support whilst using YouTube as a creative outlet. And with that also now out of the way, I would like to raise awareness as per usual to the increasing suicide rates around the world. And if you or any of your loved ones are considering harming themselves or others, please consider calling this number, as this is the suicide hotline. And with that out of the way, do not do anything stupid or dramatic, but instead remember, there are people that care about you. And with that, peace.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
Subscribe for more.
Yada yada does it.